Please be advised that although conclusions are provided in this presentation, which are simple to understand, some portions of this presentation can seem highly technical for the layman or those without an aviation background. We encourage those who may feel overwhelmed to pause this presentation and thoroughly review the educational tools offered and use perhaps your favorite search engine. Viewing this presentation more than once will also prove to be beneficial.
Pilots for 9/11 Truth is an organization of aviation professionals and pilots throughout the globe who have gathered together for one purpose. We are committed to seeking the truth surrounding the events of September 11, 2001. Our main focus concentrates on the 4 flights, maneuvers performed, and the reported pilots. We do not offer theory or point blame at this time. However, we are focusing on determining the truth of that fateful day based on solid data and facts. We stand with the numerous other growing organizations of firefighters, medical professionals, lawyers, scholars, scientists, architects and engineers, veterans, religious and political leaders, alongside the family members of the victims, family members of the soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice, including many of the Ground Zero workers who are now ill or have passed away, when we ask for a true, new independent investigation into the events of September 11, 2001. Thank you for taking the time to inform yourself.
September 11, 2001, New York City. A beautiful September morning turns into a nightmare. Millions watch as the world changes forever. 2 aircraft used as missiles to force an apparent agenda. We've been told people from thousands of miles away hated our freedoms and our way of life. That they hijacked 4 aircraft, 2 which they managed to navigate to lower Manhattan with the intent to cause extreme damage to our freedoms and way of life. American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, both 767-200s, while the aircraft reported to have been used in the destruction of the World Trade Center. Pilots for 9/11 Truth have been able to obtain black box data from the National Transportation Safety Board, in which the NTSB claims to have come from United 93 and American 77. Thorough analysis of this data indicates many conflicts within the government story. Every government agency contacted refuses to comment. The black boxes for the aircraft reportedly used for the strike in New York City, however, do not exist. According to government agencies, the black boxes were never recovered, but according to other sources, they were. DeMasi and Ballone, 2 workers at Ground Zero, were tasked by the FBI to locate the black boxes. They claim 3 of the 4 were recovered. According to author Dave Lindorf, a source at the NTSB also states the recorders were recovered and given to the NTSB for analysis. The story dead ends there, as all government agencies, including the NTSB, now deny the existence of these recorders reportedly found at Ground Zero. What could these recorders have told us? Flight data recorders are built to withstand 3,400 Gs and temperatures of 1,100 degrees Celsius. The fact that people who worked at Ground Zero claim the recorders were found intact, and other sources claim the recorders were sent to the NTSB for analysis, this is just more evidence which conflicts with what we've been told, to add to the growing mountain of conflicting evidence. We don't expect the black boxes or the possible data they contain will ever be produced for the World Trade Center strike, so we will have to analyze data which is available. Since we do not have FDR data from the World Trade Center strike aircraft, We have to look elsewhere for any other type of data which may have been gathered and reported. One of the data sets we do have is position, speed, and a crude form of altitude data claimed to be from the 84th Radar Evaluation Squadron, also known as RADES. Initially denied by the FAA, a backdoor FOIA request produced this RADES radar data. Although reviewing altitude envelopes as compared to ASR radar with altitude reporting, also known as Mode C, and the fact the NTSB admits RADES data can have potentially large errors, it's not prudent to use such information for precise analysis, as others have done. The NTSB also performed a radar data impact speed study, in which they claim to have used ASR radar, which is much more accurate than RADES for calculating speed and altitude, especially when Mode C is available. The speeds cited for the strike aircraft exceed aircraft limitations set by the manufacturer for the aircraft reportedly used, unmodified airline fleet stock 767s. Can a 767 obtain such speeds? We have attempted to gather wind tunnel data from the manufacturer to answer this very question, but still without success. We searched for other 767 aircraft accidents in which a comparison can be made and a benchmark set. Egypt Air 990, a 767 which reportedly exceeded its max operating limits, can be used as precedent as data is available from its flight data recorder, according to the NTSB. The NTSB calculates aircraft speed as 430 knots and 510 knots for American 11 and United 175 respectively, both reported as 767s. Those who make excuse for the government story attempt to cite Egypt Air 990, a 767 which reportedly was an intentional crash by one of the flight crew, as precedent that a 767 can reach speeds reported for the aircraft which allegedly struck the World Trade Center. According to the NTSB, which is disputed by Egyptian investigators, Egypt Air 990 first officer pushed the nose over to commit suicide, taking crew and passengers with him. During this dive, Egypt Air 990 exceeded maximum operating speeds for a 767, which are 360 knots and 0.86 Mach. We will cover the reason for assigning two airspeed limitations shortly. The NTSB reports the flight data recorder from Egypt Air 990 recorded a peak speed of 0.99 Mach at an altitude of 22,000 feet during its dive. 0.99 Mach is just below the speed of sound. Again, maximum operating speeds for a 767 are 360 knots and 0.86 Mach, respectively assigned as VMO, which is velocity max operating, and MMO, which is Mach max operating. Those who argue that since Egypt Air 990 reached 0.99 Mach, exceeding 0.86, that certainly the World Trade Center aircraft could do the same. What these people fail to realize is the air density at different altitudes and the corresponding effects on an aircraft. Remember, Egypt Air 990 reached its peak speed at 22,000 feet. World Trade Center aircraft were operating close to sea level. As you can see, when an aircraft descends, air pressure increases rapidly, directly increasing air density. There is a good reason Boeing assigns two airspeed for maximum operating limits. One is for lower altitude in this very dense air, in terms of knots, and the other for higher altitudes measured in Mach. The reason for this is air pressure, and therefore density, rapidly decreases with altitude up till about 22,000 feet. Knots as a unit of measurement in terms of the airspeed indicator is no longer accurate for measuring airspeed at altitude, and Mach speed is then utilized. In order to determine an accurate airspeed which has the same effects as Mach speed at altitude for an equivalent airspeed at lower altitude, there is an airspeed appropriately called equivalent airspeed, or EAS. Quote, equivalent airspeed is defined as the speed at sea level that would produce the same dynamic pressure as the true airspeed at the altitude at which the vehicle is flying, i.e., air contacting the airframe with equivalent effects. For simplicity, we will use online calculators to demonstrate, but for those who wish to calculate their own data, this is the proper formula to use. For example, Mach 1 at 22,000 feet based on a standard day temperature is 609 knots true airspeed. 0.86 Mach is 522 knots. 522 knots at 22,000 feet, remember, in less